like to welcome you to See Beyond, a podcast in which we meet people who tell us how they see beyond their visual impairment. Before we get started today, I would like to remind you that you can tune in to See Beyond on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, or even our website. Today, I am here with Richard Rueda, an individual with amazing advice who's going to tell us more about his story. Hi, how are you doing today?
Good afternoon. I'm doing fine. I'm looking forward to being interviewed and talking to you about a little bit of who I am and what I do.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited too. So, do you want to just hop into the questions?
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right. So, firstly, could you tell us a little bit about your visual impairment?
Yeah. So again, my name is Richard Rueda, and I've been legally blind all my life. I'm 46 years old, and at birth, I was born with congenital glaucoma, which essentially meant I had glaucoma from birth, which isn't too rare, or which is kind of rare, I should say. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Lost vision in my left eye within 6 months of birth, and throughout my life, I've struggled with glaucoma in my right eye, cornea replacements and retina detachments in my right eye, and to this date, I have some residual vision, which I'm very fortunate. I've actually gone blind completely in my right eye, and having already being blind in my left eye, I've been totally blind a few times in my life. So I know what it's like being completely blind and being what we call partially sighted or low vision.
Oh, interesting. So, I'm actually really curious. How does that work? Like, how do you become partially blind for some parts of your life and then get your vision back?
Well, so all my life I've been partially sighted or low vision. You can use that. And over the years, I've had complications in my right eye with what I have had remaining vision in my right eye. And because of complications with the retina being detached and the cornea, having to get a cornea transplant in my right eye, I have lost vision. Most recently, 8 years ago in 2012, I went blind for 6 months because I woke up one out of the blue. I lost all the vision in my right eye. So when you close your eyelids and you see, that's all you see the back of your eyelids. That's what I saw for 6 months until they were able to go in there and reattach my retina and put it on a new cornea.
Oh, wow.
So to this day, I have restrictions. Like I can't lift anything over 25 pounds, or I shouldn't go on roller coasters at amusement parks. Not that really anyone is doing it right now, but
Yeah.
rattle my head, I shouldn't. I should avoid.
Yeah, no, that's incredibly interesting. So,
Yeah.
kind of shifting the topic here, I wanted to ask, what are you passionate about?
A lot of things. So I've made my career working with students, young adults, teenagers who are blind and low vision and disabled themselves. So a lot of what I do is motivational in motivational presentations, really influencing young people who are blind or disabled to really get them to think outside of their bubble, outside of what they currently know to be. Often they are the only ones who are blind or low vision who in their school or in their community. So I connect them to other people so that they can support each other and really be motivated to go out and get a career and work hard to get a job. The unemployment rate of people who are disabled and blind is very low, is very high. It's over 70%. So one of my goals in life is to help people achieve their potential by getting them to think outside the box and attaining those goals. My second passion is as you are aware, in my notes, is I like to do things outdoors. I like to swim. I like to hike. I like to walk with my dog and just be active.
Mm-hmm. So I kind of wanted to talk about you being active first, and then we can kind of transition and make our way over. So many individuals with visual impairments feel socially isolated when they go outside due to their restricted vision. So I wanted to ask, what do you do to prevent social isolation, if you have any, and when you go out? And let's say, hike or play ball or whatever, swim,
And that's a very good question. And some of the things that I do to stay active and avoid social isolation is I do have a small group of friends like myself who are sighted and who are blind, and we do things together. So I try to find people in my life who have similar likes, so we can say, hey, let's go hiking this weekend, or let's go for a swim.
Oh.
When they are busy working or doing other things, I do have a guide dog, 80-pound black Labrador, and so he and I will go for long walks. In fact, this morning we walked a few miles before
Wow.
I'm going to be going swimming later at a friend's house. Everything's social distancing right now in this day and age, so anything I can do outdoors to stay active, especially in the summertime, I'm all for it. So I try to find people I associate with, and or I have my white cane, and I just perceive confidence. You have to be confident when you're out there in the world. You have to have your head up, your shoulders back, and know that you belong in the world. And just because you have a disability doesn't mean you can't access those things.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of people do struggle with confidence. So I think what you said is very important, of finding people who lift you up and help you feel confident. Find a group of people who you can relate with too.
There are a lot of user groups out there, a lot of meetup groups, a lot of things online where you can initiate the conversation and say, hey, I have similar interests. How about you? And then, by the way, I am blind. I'd like to find an activity partner, if you will, and let's do these things together. And sometimes that's all it takes.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you face any physical obstacles while doing the things that you love, like swimming or playing ball? And how do you overcome them?
I think for me, it comes down to transportation. So many times
Mhm.
I go to the outdoors. I want to go up to Lake Tahoe. I want to go kayaking, and finding someone to go kayaking with and or getting there, transportation is hard because the public bus won't go up into the mountains, or the local transit system, light rail, subway won't go there. So that's the hardest part of accessing the real deep woods, the outdoorsy stuff that I really want to do. I can do hiking. I can go swimming any day of the week. But if I want to go kayaking or go to the lake or do water sports that's outside of town, that's where I have to be creative and find people to do those things with.
Okay. And like, as for transportation, is there anything specific that you use that helps you? Like any specific companies or like Uber or?
It would have to be creative. I would have to find someone who does Uber who would be willing to drive me an hour up into the mountains. But then it would be, could I get them to pick me up 3 or 4 hours later? And
Mhm.
in those rural areas, it's hard to get Uber or Lyft to pick you up.
Yeah.
So sometimes you can take Amtrak or Greyhound to some of those
Oh.
isolated areas, and then from there you could get a local taxi in town, one of the smaller towns to take you. But you really have to be creative, and you really have to want to do it. And if drive is there, nothing's going to stop you.
Yeah. And as for hiking, as you were mentioning, are there any specific trails that you prefer to go on?
For me, because often I'll do it by myself, I go hiking on trails near the American River here in Sacramento. Trails that are well groomed so that if I trip and fall, I'm not going to hurt myself big time. Versus if I was going hiking up in the mountains where there's lots more cliffs and switchbacks and more rugged, I would be less willing to go by myself. So when I go
Yeah.
hiking locally, I keep it very urban, keep it close to a public access point. So if I get injured, if my dog gets injured, I can call for help immediately.
Okay. And I want to learn about your guide dog more. Could you tell us more about your guide dog and how your guide dog helps you do activities outside?
Yes, so I have a 80-pound black Labrador. His name is Odif, Odif. Now, if you spell that backwards, Ido, F-I-D-O. He and I have been working together for 6 years, and so he's a great dog. He loves to play. When he's not in harness, he loves to play just like any other dog. But when you put that harness on him, he is a working dog. His job is to get me around obstacles or to identify barriers in my path. So if there's a step going up or down, he'll stop at at the edge of that step, and then it's up to me to put my foot forward to detect if it's an upward step or a downward step. Same thing with curbs on the street. And there's another thing called intelligent disobedience. So your dog is trained to really follow your commands and your commands. If you are crossing a street, it's really quiet, but then one of those hybrid cars comes along that you can't always hear, and street, and my dog knows that car is coming, but I can't hear it. He will block me. He'll cross in front of me, and he'll say, "No, let's not cross." And he can't see when the light's red or green. He can't tell.
Yeah.
It's more of him and I working in combination together, and he's really good at that. He's really helped me, especially in areas where it's quiet, and then one of those hybrid cars comes along. It's great.
Wow. So it's called intelligent disobedience, correct? That's such an interesting concept. I haven't thought of
that. Because they get trained, they get socialized for a year, and then they get trained for 3 months back at the school that they were born into by adults who are, their whole entire job is to train the dogs to get you around obstacles. And they do one thing called a traffic check, so that when the dog is in harness and you're in class, you will be walking down streets, and your instructor will be 50 yards behind you, observing you, getting you to trust that dog. And up along some driveway down the way, a car will pull out in front of you, and it's the dog's duty to stop. Now that driver is someone from the agency. They're not going to hit you, but if the dog gets too close or doesn't back up, the passenger and the next to the driver will reach out the window with a rolled newspaper and bat the dog on the nose to reinforce that you need to stop when the car.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So that's very interesting. Yeah. So, what advice do you have for anyone out there who's kind of hesitant to go outside, but they really want to go out more and do activities like you do?
I think initially, if people are really wanting to get out but are uncertain how to do it, especially if you haven't been out in a while or in a new area, find an activity partner, a buddy, a partner, somebody who would be willing to go with you to get oriented to where you want to go and hang out and do those things. And then once you get, maybe that person will want to come with you, or maybe you'll just end up doing it once you build your confidence and you get your orientation around those areas.
Okay. Yeah, I like that idea. I think that's great to have someone with you to kind of embark on this journey and start just going out and doing things. So now I wanted to transition over to your work at the Society for the Blind. So how did you start working at the Society for the Blind?
I've been working with Society for the Blind for, well, it's going to be 5 years this August. And
wow.
prior to that, I've worked in other similar agencies all over California. I landed in Sacramento. Really like Sacramento. It's a very friendly city. Yes, it gets hot in the summer, but I like the accessibility of the city. So I was able to get the job in Sacramento. I moved here, working with youth and young adults who are also blind and low vision for 5 years in this current job in our Careers Plus program.
Okay, and what do you do at the Society for the Blind?
So I work very similar to like a teacher / career counselor in high school. Students to really think about what's going to be next for you when you leave high school to college. And when you're blind, you have a whole new set of things you have to be prepared for. You have to learn how your technology is going to work for you when you go to college. If you need to get a white cane to get navigating around your campus, we talk about those types of things and what that means. Self-advocacy is a big thing, really being prepared to ask for what you need. Accommodation, how to get your books either braille or large print. All those things are done for you in high school as a rite of passage, as the public law requires to be accommodated. When you go to college, all those things don't happen automatically. So a lot of students don't have the self-advocacy skills needed to be successful in college. In college, you hit the ground running. So we really prepare them for college and the world of work, getting their first job and succeeding at their first job, building a resume, and passing an interview and letting and showing to the people who are sighted that you can work, because there's a lot of discrimination out there on why should I hire you? You're blind. I don't know if you can do the job, or it's too visual. So we talk about how you convince and how you influence people to hire you.
Yeah. And do you mind giving a couple tips here today? How do you convince people to hire you, and how do you self-advocate for yourself if you're scared?
That's a good point. We do a lot of seminars and workshops, and we offer them free. Now that we're doing things virtually over Zoom, we offer those weekly. But what I really tell people is, know what you want to do. You might have 2 or 3 different career choices. Work with a career counselor, work with a rehabilitation counselor. If you're blind in California, you can apply for Department of Rehabilitation. And their whole job is to help you get a job. And it might be helping you go to school. And they help you purchase the very expensive talking software, the Braille materials you need, or the Braille devices, and other things that you need to do your schoolwork and your job successfully. So really dial in and know those resources. And then convincing someone to hire you, it really goes on making eye contact, proving to them how you can be an asset to them, and showing them the technology that you use is what you've done in school to be successful, and you can do the same on the job.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. So I wanted to kind of jump back over to your passions, if that's okay. And so I remember you mentioned to me that you've traveled all over the US, Costa Rica, Ireland, Scotland, Italy, and you've been meeting new people, like looking at new cultures. That's so like amazing. So could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, like you said, I have been to Costa Rica, I've been to Ireland, I've been to Scotland, and just my passion to travel, to get out and go, has always been that way since I was very young. And I remember in high school, I went to New York for the holidays, from the day after Christmas to New Year's, with our drama class, because we wanted to be in Times Square. We wanted to see all the Broadway plays, and just get a sense of what New York City is like in the wintertime. And we did. It was great. And I think that was one of the first trips I did away from my family.
Mm-hmm.
I would go to summer camp. And there's really not much I want to do. Costa Rica was fun. We did zip lining up in the jungle, and
Wow, that sounds fun.
limitless, and lots of things. And I like water sports, so anytime I can go canoeing or kayaking, I'm all there.
So you mentioned in New York you liked watching a lot of Broadway plays. Are there any like seats that are like best for you to sit at, or can you basically sit anywhere?
Well, that was several years ago, but ever since, in many cities, like here in Sacramento, performing arts become a lot more accessible. So, you know how when you watch TV, see people doing this closed captioning for people who are deaf, so they can follow along the dialogue?
Yeah.
We have something called audio description. So you will take a non-verbal scene, maybe 2 people are talking, but then they're approaching or doing something where there's no dialogue. Then the narrator comes in and narrates to you what is happening. People are looking at a mountain. People are doing this, and they try to avoid the dialogue so they can describe to you the scenes without interrupting the dialogue. Same thing with performing arts. If there's Broadway, if there's a musical, there's a play, somebody will interject what's happening up on stage or up on the screen when there's no dialogue. Fill in those blanks for you.
Oh yeah, that's very nice. I never knew about the audio like descriptions. And you're kind of like a travel expert. You've been to the US and like Ireland, Scotland, you've been to so many places. And I know that airports can be like very busy with so many people, and it's kind of like bustling. So how do you have any tricks or advice for people who go to the airport?
When you go to airports, especially the large airports, if you check in early for your flight, you could get someone from the airline, once you check in at the gate, to come and walk you to your gate and to the bathroom. If you're more independent, if you've been to that airport before, you might just use audio cues. You might go, okay, I know the TSA check-in is over to my left. If I stay to the right, I can line up, and then I'll tell someone in front of me to let me know when they're walking, so I don't stand there and pull people up. And then I kind of ask the TSA agents, where's gate 1 versus where's gate 15? And I go, it's either to your left or to your right, or at a different concourse. So sometimes if there's enough people at the airport, you can just ask, am I going the right direction?
Yeah, and they're good about like giving like succinct directions and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. And what advice do you have for people who want to start traveling a lot?
Know your destination, know where you're going, be safe, don't wear lots of jewelry, put your money in a money belt, and have like an emergency system letting people know where you're going so that if they don't hear from you, they can reach out to you. And be smart, be street smart, pack light. I think we tend to overpack and
Yeah.
really have a blast and keep it real simple.
And so if you want to bring your guide dog with you when you travel, like, are there rules and regulations for that? Like, how would that work?
Generally, no. I mean, if you do go to places like Hawaii, they have to quarantine your dog, or you have to get your dog a variety of shots, or if you go to certain countries, you have to have a paper that says your dog is a guide dog. But basically, domestic travel in the United States, there really isn't a place your dog can't go, other than sometimes they won't be allowed in hospital settings, in ICU, and sometimes you go to a zoo and you're walking around, sometimes your dog will actually agitate these new animals. So sometimes they recommend that you don't go to the zoo, but it's not prohibited. It's just more of a encouraged. But pretty much you can take your dog anywhere.
Oh, okay. That's nice to know. So,
Yeah.
As we're kind of like wrapping up and nearing the end of this podcast, is there any advice that we like couldn't cover that you would like to just give to the viewers watching this?
It's just really I always tell my students, challenge your curiosity, really stay active, keep your hands in a couple of different things that you're interested in. So if one career doesn't fall through, you have other careers, other interests you can back up on. There should be no reason why you should be bored. And then the other thing I'll say is, I was noticing I'm wearing an Apple Watch and a Fitbit, so they help me track my steps, my activity, my heart rate, my flights climb. So that kind of keeps you motivated. If you like to do outdoors things, you want to be challenged with others, there's groups that you can sign up and do your step count and challenge each other for health and activity and wellness.
Mm-hmm. And like when you use like your technology with the Apple Watch and Fitbit, are there like screen readers?
Yeah, the Apple Watch will talk to me, and it'll tell me the time. It'll even read my emails or give me headlines.
Oh, nice.
And the Fitbit, I can sync with my phone, and it'll tell me how many steps I did. So that's why I have them both.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I mean, that's really good advice to keep like challenging yourself and keep your curiosity alive.
Absolutely.
All right, so I think that's all the questions that I had for you today. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
I enjoyed like learning and talking to you. It was a great experience.
It was fun, and I wish you much success with future interviews.
Thank you. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe so you are notified when a new episode is posted. Rate and review this podcast and share it with your friends. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you're leaving with some great things that will help you see beyond.